We're here for a single reason: put tools in people's hands that let them change their life. I'm going to fail just a little bit every day because I continue to push myself into things that I don't know how to do well. And growth comes by pushing myself outside of my comfort zone, because that is the only place that growth can take place.
And there he is.
Evan.
Mr. Dave Hollis, how you doing, man?
I am well. How are you?
Awesome, man. Thank you for making the time.
It is a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Now, what is your official title?
Husband to Rachel Hollis. No, my official title is CEO of the Hollis Company, a little thing that we are doing together on the regular out of Austin, Texas now.
I love it. I was looking over your YouTube channel and realized it's been a year since your big move.
It has been a year. What a year. It's crazy. We have had conversations about this big move for like 5 years, but it was June 1st or so of last year. Our kids were getting out of school. It's funny. We were in LA 2 days ago, and we were driving past the studio lot, and I remembered, oh my goodness, I was actually still going to work at this joint a year ago today, because my last day was May 30th. And it's crazy to think of how many things have changed, how much like we've become accustomed to Texas, all the work we're doing here for the company. But life was completely different 1 second ago.
What's been the biggest change for you 11, 12 months in?
Well, I can wear shorts every day if I want to. So, there's that. I made a jump out of something that was great on the outside, but under satisfying, unfulfilling in some respects, because of it not being as challenging as I might have hoped it to be, for something that is challenging every single day. And so the biggest difference or change in the shortest term has been becoming really comfortable with the unpredictable, becoming really comfortable with the unconventional things that show up in a small business. I have a lot of muscle memory from having worked in conglomerate corporate environments for basically the entirety of my adult life. And as it turns out, most of the things that I learned when I was the head of distribution at the Walt Disney Company, or when I worked at Fox before that, or whatever it might have been, they're not necessarily perfectly applicable inside of the small business space that we're running inside of now. So where I used to delegate a whole bunch of things to really qualified experts who could do the job really well, I'm now having to roll my sleeves up and get my nails dirty and do work, which is most days really great. And sometimes like, what? I got to do work too? Yes, I do.
I loved your YouTube series when you had it. The vlogs.
Oh, yeah. We went for a stretch where we just had those cameras rolling all the time. I think we're going to get back into that a little bit more. It's weird because we're doing a daily live morning experience called the Start Today Morning Show. It's a bizarre world that we live in, where we get to talk to people on an every single day basis, but that has become a little bit more of the peek inside of the life that we end up having. We shoot it against this beautiful color-coded bookshelf on an every single day basis, and we let people like have a little bit of what it's like to do life with us, tell some funny stories, but then maybe also show up and attempt to inspire people, push them to reach for a better version of themselves at the same time. So we got to do more. We got to do more videos, though. You know what I need? I need like a Gary V crew. He's rolling around with like 8 people at all times, making sure his life is fully documented. I'm ready for it. Let's go, Gary. Send your people over, man.
Well, he started with 1.
Okay.
But he also wasn't capable of doing it on himself. Like he got inspired by Casey, who was doing it himself. Casey Neistat, who was doing it all himself. And then he said, I can't do that, but I can have somebody follow me around. And so D-Rock was his first guy who came and started following him around. But I thought you guys were doing a great job. I love the behind the scenes. I love the, as much as you could, I guess, unfilteredness of it. I live in a YouTube world, man. That's my thing. We've got a couple million subscribers on YouTube. I think YouTube needs to hear your voice, like both of you.
All right. I'm in. Let's go. I'm ready. Come on, YouTube, get ready for it. We're going to start doing stuff. Evan says we have to, and I trust that. So those are good words.
They could even start with
a little more video of the things that we are up to. Like I was recording next week's episode of the Rise Together podcast yesterday, and we're in a new office that finally can accommodate a camera recording the recording of a podcast. So it's a recording of a recording, but I'll tell you what, that will end up being a thing that we can put on YouTube. I just think I need more like vlog camera moments, like when I'm driving. When I was in LA, we were doing vlog camera stuff all the time in the car, which was great. I'm driving this 69 Ford Bronco, and I'm going to be honest, the acoustics of a Bronco with a Mustang engine do not accommodate YouTube as well as you might be thinking it would, but we got to do it. We got to do it.
Even just filming your show is a great start.
Yeah. I mean, we got to do that too.
What I love about you in particular is most of the people who are creating content in this space, at least in the business entrepreneur space, first off are men. If you're looking at Gary or Grant or Tom or Patrick or all of them, they're men. There's Mel who's making some content. She's probably the most consistent woman. So, I mean, I love to see Rachel making consistent content too. I think she could crush on that.
Yeah.
But all the men who are making the content they're the front. They're the guy. And you're the CEO, but Rachel is the front.
She's the guy.
And she's the guy. She's the gal. She's the front. And I love, at least what I saw in the YouTube series, I loved your dynamic. I'd love still hearing your perspective and your opinions and how can you support her and what she's doing, and then also support the family. And that's, I think Rachel's voice is definitely needed, but I think your voice is needed in that there's not a lot of guys who are in your position who are sharing their story and feel like it's okay, because every other guy is the front, is the guy. And some people can relate to that and a lot won't be able to. And so I think as much as Rachel's voice is needed, I think yours is too.
Thanks, man. Well, here's the good news. I wrote a book. It is an attempt to talk about the things in my life that have gotten in my way over the course of time, that if I'd not believed this excuse or not believed this lie or not had the kind of mindset that was more fixed than growth, or not been as motivated by extrinsic things instead of intrinsic things, I'd probably be further along in my journey. And so I wrote this book, comes out in March of this next year. It's a little bit of a take on Rachel's Girl Wash Your Face, which was trying to take the lies, 20, that she believed and find the proof that made them unbelievable any longer. And so I've tried to take 20 lies that I, at some point in my life, believed and disprove them. And in talking about thinking that personal development was for broken people, or that I have to parent like my parents, or that a drink is going to fix this, or that I know what my wife needs, or all of the things, all the lies, that maybe if there are other people who can relate to those things, they might get out of their own way faster or find a way to become a better version of themselves sooner. I think in the lead up to the launch of this book, having something that is more of a profile, a little more deliberate YouTube-ness is probably part of what's going to happen. So look forward to that. I'm looking forward to it. It's been exciting. Honestly, like I came out of a world where the last 7 years of my time at the Walt Disney Company was as the head of sales for the movie studio, and I was a manager of optics. So I was curating a little bit of what I thought people needed to think or see when it came to the movie business that we were working inside of. And I was the front person for the press on a weekly basis to spin, if it was good or bad, the performance of a film in the very best light. Coming out of all of that muscle memory, where optics management, expectation management, making sure that things look like, you know, the way that most people who are watching speeds look, the highlight reels of their life instead of the true, real stuff, I'm pivoting into a space that's like, you know what? We're going to talk honestly about struggle. We're going to talk honestly about insecurity. We're going to talk honestly about imposter syndrome. We're going to talk honestly about the stuff that all of us, if we're honest with ourselves, deal with. And in that honesty, maybe create a little bit of empathy between the tools that we're creating and the people who need them the most. So I'm excited about it. It's unconventional and different only because it breaks from a little bit of the norm of what masculinity has suggested men ought to show up as or ought to be like. And all that stuff really, for me, was a gate. It was a barrier to truly becoming the best version of myself. And I'm happy to be on the other side of getting a little smarter about it and hope that I can help other people get there too.
How does it feel now stepping into being the guy, having your own book?
I'm excited and it's frightening. I think I'm a good writer. I think I've got good things to say. I'm writing about a bunch of stuff that men don't necessarily traditionally confess. I'm going to talk about a bunch of times when I was not the best version of myself as a man, as a husband, as a father. And as much as I'm writing it in part for other men who are interested in, maybe learning a little bit from my experiences and acknowledging those times, I'm writing it for humanity. I want women to be inspired by and get out of their own way as much as I'm hoping for men to as well. So the pressure, as it were, as a first-time author, to follow my wife, who has not one but two books. Her books are number 1 and number 2 on the New York Times bestseller list right now. And so, to follow up a book that in Girl Wash Your Face has sold more than 3 million copies, and Girl Stop Apologizing has sold more than 750,000 copies in 3 months worth of time, I don't have any illusions that I'm going to have the same kind of success, but it also in a weird way stacks just a tiny bit of pressure for me. So wanting to feel like I can put the very best tool out there because I'm being afforded an opportunity because of her and because of the platform that I get to share with her. That is a little bit of a line jumping opportunity. So I want to make it great. I'm going through the editing process right now. That's soul sucking. I'll tell you what, having somebody tell you that you've done a good job, but here are the 700 places where we think you maybe could have done a better job. That's going to punch you in the ego just a tiny bit. But the, again, end goal is to get to a place where you actually have something that you are, feeling great about, or that can be the best tool possible. As a company, we're here for a single reason: put tools in people's hands that let them change their life, that let them have the kind of control, the wisdom, the knowledge, the tools to make lasting life change. And this is going to be one of those tools. I'm excited, but it's definitely one of those things too that's been a little bit of a trigger for any of the insecurities that any human ends up having when they want to make sure that something is great. Off the Beaten Path says, who's this guy? I want to know this too, man. Who is this guy? My name's Dave, hanging out in my den.
I love it. Well, if you had to pick one word, most important core value for you, what would you go with?
The most important core value, in the business, it's impact.
No. Well, for you, for Dave Hollis.
Well, in 2019, without a doubt, and maybe the theme of 16 to 19 has been growth. I was a person that had, for the entirety of my adult life, clung to certainty as the most important commodity in my life. And that certainty came at the expense of growth. And now that I understand wholly and completely the 100% correlation that exists between growing and a sense of fulfillment, when I was in that weird bridge between being in my 30s to being in my 40s, I didn't know why I was so stuck. And I was struggling a little bit with some bigger existential questions of what the heck I was doing on this planet. And it wasn't until I was able to push aside the lies of, personal development isn't for a person like me, or that you have to be broken to need help, or that, someone taking a step out of something that maybe makes sense to you, but not to everyone else. Those kind of things happening have been the now fruit that I get to enjoy on an everyday basis as a more evolved and happier, more fulfilled person. So growth for me in this year is becoming comfortable in the discomfort of leading a small business that's, in the last 9 months we got here, we started doing work with 4 employees, we have 27. Well, that's the speed with which the business has grown is disruptive to my, historic interest in certainty, because there's a lot of uncertainty in hiring new people, in growing the business, in putting our work into platforms or with partners who we've never done business with. And so I've really tried to stay focused on One, redefining a little bit of what failure ends up meaning in our life. I was in a position at Disney, not because of how good I was, but because of how strong the titles were, the teams were, the brands were, to not fail. And the absence of being in a position to fail was part of what created the lack of fulfillment, because I was never being tested. I was never being pushed to use the potential that's been afforded me. And now I'm being tested every day. And that test, that like the chance that we can fail, I'm not worried about failing on the whole. We're gonna succeed and have massive, massive impact. But I'm gonna fail just a little bit every day, because I continue to push myself into things that I don't know how to do well. And it's only through failing in those things that I will fail, learn, and ultimately grow. So that was a long way to answer growth. Growth is the thing that I am most focused on, and growth comes by pushing myself outside of my comfort zone, because that is the only place that growth can take place.
I love it, man. From the 20 lies that you're talking about in your book coming up, what's the one that you had the hardest time overcoming?
Oh man, they're like they all are a little bit like, it's not to say that there's parity across all of them, but there's something seasonal in almost every one of them. Like, there was a time where the opinions of other people was a huge anchor in my life, in a way that at a different time in my life, it didn't matter to me at all what anybody else thought. There was a time where the identity that I had in our relationship was wholesale completely different, that when she, Rachel, grew into someone that was bigger and different and more confident and self-reliant than the person that I married originally, in that changing dynamic, the insecurities that came from wondering, if she doesn't need me, will she still want me, were a thing that didn't exist at the beginning of our relationship, but certainly in the last few years, as she's become the greatest motivational speaker and one of the best-selling authors in the entire world. Like, those are things that have crept in, and like being honest and dealing with that, like needing a drink. Here, like I'll talk honestly about in the book, and anytime anyone asks, like, I have as a defense mechanism, when things in a world where I used to want to preserve the like knowing certainty, what's exactly going to happen, when things became uncertain, I'd usually medicate that with a couple of drinks at the end of a day to kind of smooth out those rough edges. And what I've come to appreciate is alcohol and smoothing actually is maybe smoothing out the edges, but also smoothing out the struggle that actually is producing the growth. The breaking down of the muscle that will make the muscle stronger is what comes by sitting in the struggle instead of trying to push it away. So I haven't had a drink in 6 weeks, 7 weeks, because of how many things that we're doing and how much it was like, I ain't got time for this. I can't get into this. But I talk in the book about how there have been times when I've gone to coping mechanisms because of wanting to push the struggle away. And the struggle is why, like, it's where the growth comes from. So anyway, it kind of depends on like either the relationship that we're talking about. Some of the lies are specific to the relationship I have with my wife or my kids. Some of them are very much about my identity and sense of self. And some of them are about the way that I was indoctrinated with what it meant to be a man, or what society suggested I ought to do to be the right kind of man, and how coming to like a really, really peaceful, calm place with who I am, without any regard for what society, media, my parent, anything ever said about me, has been a huge, huge help. So there's a lot of things, man. It's going to be good. It's going to be fire. I'm going to say the words, let's go, as we get close to the launch.
I love it, man. Do you think that we can overcome those lies, or we just are capable of handling a bigger version of it?
Oh, you can overcome these lies. I mean, here's the thing. You can or you can't. And if you believe that you can't, you won't. And if you believe that you can, you will. The first thing that you have to do is go on a search for evidence that make the lie totally unbelievable. And we all have evidence of an opposite version of the narrative that we're telling if the narrative we're telling doesn't serve us. And so when I get stuck doing anything that is anchor holding me back from being the best version of myself, I have to ask either, who planted this seed? Who planted the poison of the belief that is the limiting belief that I currently am holding on to? What was their motivation for telling me that I was not enough, that I couldn't do it, that I ought to reduce my ambition or think differently about how I show up? Are they an expert in their field? Do I respect the way that they are living their life? Do they have the authority that deserves me believing them having said it as a capital T, now truth in my life? If the answers end up being yes, then yeah, maybe you should sit and take the advice of those people. And if they don't end up being yes, you got to let that go. Life is way too short. Move on. Then second, you have to ask, this thing that I have anxiety about, fear of, shame for, are the things that I'm believing true or hypothetical? Are they real or are they imagined? Did somebody actually tell you that you aren't enough, or are you just reliving a version of a playground incident from 7th grade where somebody triggered something then that still manifests and shows up when you become insecure now? And if the answer is it may be more of a hypothetical or an imaginary kind of thing, how do you find the opposite of that thing so that you can remind yourself of the truth instead of the lie that you're stuck with? And the truth can end up being, I've always figured it out. If you're worried that you can't figure it out, but you always have, the reminder that you've always figured it out will be the thing that helps you realize that you're going to figure it out. If you've failed before and learned from failing, when you're worried about failing, you're going to remind yourself, I got so much further ahead when I failed and was able to learn from the experience of failing. And so, whatever you're stuck, you're like, everyone has a version of not enough. Everyone has a version of being stuck. When you get stuck, stop and ask, is it real or not? Who planted the seed? And if it's not a thing that I should believe or isn't serving me, what opposite thing could be true that would make this thing completely unbelievable so that I can throw it overboard and move on?
I love it, man. Well, it's crazy how quickly time flies. If people want to dive deeper into your world, besides checking out your YouTube channel that is about to explode with fire content coming, it's coming. Besides that, people want to find out about the book or just dive deeper into your world. Where do you want them to go?
Well, we have a website called thehollisco.com. The Hollis Co. has everything you could possibly want to know about the work that we are doing. My wife and I are trying to bring goodness into the world on an everyday basis. If you like the echoey sound of my voice in a color-coded bookshelf-filled room, every single morning at 8 a.m. Central Time, we do a live broadcast right here in this room, a little something called the Start Today Morning Show. It's a little bit zany and a lot of bit inspirational. Brad says, drop that website again, The Hollis Co. TheHollisco.com. Check that out. And yeah, the YouTube channel that Evan speaks of, I don't even know that it exists yet. So I know Rachel has one, but at some point I'm gonna get one too. But for now and in between now and then, come hang out with us in the morning, have a little bit of a laugh, feel a little bit of inspiration, and go live your dang best life.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the time, the energy, and I'm pumped for your book coming out next year.
Thanks, man. Have a good one. Take care, y'all.
All right. Cheers. If you want to see my interview with Tom Bilyeu, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
What are you doing? You're not answering the question I'm asking. I felt so hopeless and so lost and just unsure of how I was going to make anything in my life.